They came in search of a better life in a magical new world. They endured a dangerous sea voyage and braved a hostile environment to establish England's first permanent foothold in a strange land called America. And then they vanished without a trace.
There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
And it's episode 98.
Yeah, 98. This is going to be a good one because this is mostly going to be about the Lost Colony of Roanoke.
Well, yeah, we figured, okay, we are recording this on July 1st, which is actually Thomm's birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Woo! Happy birthday to you.
49 years old as fuck.
Some 80-year-olds would like a word.
Yeah, right.
You.
They would love to be 49.
Right. It was like, shut up, you young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
I got you a carrot cake and everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm going to get some of that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was some good shit.
Yeah, it was.
But since this show is going up the day before the 4th of July, or Independence Day if you're an American, we decided to do kind of a American theme show, like American mystery type of show. So I've been wanting to do the Lost Colony of Roanoke for a long time, because this is something that, it's a case that always kind of fascinated me from when I was a kid. Like I said, it's something that obviously had a pretty mundane, I mean, obviously something happened to those people wasn't like supernatural or anything like that, but the fact that we don't know
exactly what
after
happened.
all this, exactly what happened to them, exactly where they went.
And we never will.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. And just kind of the creepy clues left behind and stuff like that. So it always kind of fascinated me from when I was a kid. So I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I thought, well, it's kind of American themed because it's like America's oldest cold case, I guess you could call it. Oldest missing persons case.
I was first introduced to it when I was a little kid watching regular broadcast television. In Search Of, with Leonard Nimoy. And his voiceover to the Roanoke case made this just seem so creepy. Especially back in the day when you were a little kid, you know. It's been a long time since I've seen that In Search Of episode. It's probably nothing like I remember, but I remember it just being really creepy and ominous. That maybe something bad happened to these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if it did or not.
I think I have a good idea.
I think I have a good idea what probably happened to them. It's funny because I think I saw the same In Search Of episode that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you know what I always think of when I think of this case is I always think of the Harlan Ellison short story, which was called Croatoan.
Yeah.
And it was it wasn't really based on this exactly, but it was kind of like it was almost like a more modern, like metaphorical kind of telling of it. But that was the detail that always like creeped me out, that like that you kind of arrive and there's nobody there, and then there's like this little clue left and you're not really sure what it meant.
Message, right.
Right. And so that aspect of it always kind of creeps me out.
Yeah.
So I'd been wanting to do this for a long time, and I thought, well, you know, since this is going up before Independence Day, we'll do like an America mystery themed type of thing.
Yeah, and I bet maybe it's like some of our British listeners and maybe our Indian listeners and maybe even our Australian listeners have never heard of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. It's kind of an American mystery, you know. There was a lot of different American colonies or British colonies and Dutch colonies. I think there may have been a German one set up on the eastern coast of the Americas that ended up being within the United States later on, but there was no United States at that time. Many of those colonies just disappeared. They just vanished. One of them was Roanoke. And
this is the oldest one. It was the first one.
Yeah, nobody knows what happened.
Yeah, if we had known what happened to them, it would have been the oldest settlement. Yeah. In what became the United States.
Yeah, and some clues were left behind. But
because it didn't, Jamestown is the oldest.
Right. It's a pretty weird story.
Yeah, it is a pretty creepy story. And there's a lot of theories about what happened to the people, some of them much crazier than others. But, you know, we'll get into that a little bit later on and all that other kind of stuff. But first, let's do shoutouts.
That's right. Shout it out.
All right. So if you didn't see our latest movie review, it was The Dead Zone from 1983 with Christopher Walken.
Yeah, great movie.
It is really a good movie. And it's one that I always kind of forget about when I'm thinking about, like, really good Stephen King adaptations. Yeah. I even forgot that David Cronenberg directed that shit. That's like how...
If you listen to 13 O'Clock, that's a must-see TV right there. You need to get that thing on Blu-ray. Or you can watch it for free on Tubi TV.
Yeah, Tubi TV has it. It's free. Also,
the transfer is actually pretty good. You got to put
it actually looks pretty nice.
You got to put up with a few commercial breaks, but that's okay.
Yeah,
for free.
Honestly, I don't mind that. As long as they don't cut the movies, I don't mind a commercial every now and then.
I want that bitch on Blu-ray. I got to add that to my collection. I got a lot of movies that got to go into the collection.
Right.
And I forgot another movie. I was calling it a Stephen King psychic trilogy with Dead Zone, Firestarter, and Shining. But I forgot Carrie.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, and Carrie was
forgot it too,
part of it
so,
too. Telekinesis.
Right.
And it was a kind of telekinesis that is a lot like Poltergeist.
Yeah, and that was also actually really a good movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And I totally forgot about that.
I got to get that one too.
Well, yeah, that's a fucking classic.
Right.
Also, I mentioned this on last week's show, but I put up 4 new t-shirt designs on our Zazzle store, which is zazzle.com/13 o'clock.
Yeah, these are cool designs, man. They're more punk rockish.
Yeah, Atlanta cool. Ripper, which is I think that's my favorite one. That one, well, and the H.H. Holmes one I think came out really nice.
Demon Child.
Yeah, it did.
Says, man said I could. You'll see. You guys will see it. Man said I could.
Yeah.
I need that bitch. I'm going to wear that to the club.
You do.
Yeah, I'm going to wear that to the club. Man said I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get away with anything.
Well, yeah.
Pretty much.
That's kind of like, that's the reason I made that shirt.
Yeah.
So you could just wear that, and then you could just do anything.
They're like, Ross,
and then you just be like, look at the shirt and be like, just point it to your chest.
They're like, Ross, the fuck you doing? Man said I could.
You know, all right. Well, all right. Carry on.
Yeah, the bouncers just turn their back on me. Yeah, okay. I don't get bounced or anything.
You don't anyway.
Yeah, I don't get bounced.
You don't anyway. Yeah. And I also did a Who Put Bell on the Witch Elm one, which is referring back to our Murder by Witchcraft episode. I don't even remember what number episode it is right now because I'm probably half drunk already. But, that's how that
that's right.
Goes.
I'm on that Keela again.
Keela,
yeah. It's like tequila, but without the T.
Oh, okay.
Just Keela.
I'm drinking. What the hell am I drinking? You made
it. It's a rum sunset.
Also, I have one of your ridiculous artichoke heart jars.
Yeah, you can reach in there and stir it with your hand if you need
I could put my whole head in this shit.
In there, right. It's like drinking out of a bucket of popcorn.
Right. Also, in a couple weeks, obviously our 100th episode is going to go up. Hopefully everybody likes it. I haven't really started editing it yet. We kind of recorded a bunch of stuff for it.
We got to shoot a couple more scenes. There's some
stuff. Yeah, I want to do some more video for it and everything. But you'll actually get to see our little mugs on camera.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and also Shauna.
Yeah.
Shauna and her husband Eric.
Yeah. And they're going to be on the show too. Hi, you guys.
Actually, I have Shauna kind of co-host for me.
Yeah.
I started drinking too much. I was like, Shauna took over.
And he's just like, I'm just going to go in the back and fall asleep in the chair. She did good, though.
Oh, yeah. Shauna's awesome. The guys will love it. Just 4 boobs. 4 boobs just staring at you.
In the front.
Yeah. They're looking at you. You're not looking at them. They're looking at you.
As much as boobs can stare. Well, as long as I don't know that they're staring at my boobs, they can do it in the comfort of their own homes, and they can get up to whatever they want to get up to. I don't know. I don't want to know about it. That's all.
Right. Okay.
Also, if you would like to financially support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/13 o'clock, or you can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account. And I have to give a very, very, very special shout out to our fan, Eric.
Yeah, Eric. Thank you, bro. Eric sent us just a magical, mystical $100.
For our 100th episode. Isn't that awesome?
$100. Very awesome.
That is so awesome. He made like a one-time PayPal donation. I'm like, man, that is so rad.
Yeah, Eric appears in the comments a lot. You'll see who it is we're talking about. I'm not going to use his last name. They don't have permission yet, but you'll see who it is.
Yeah, and that is super awesome. And it's like, I just love when that happens.
Yeah.
Because it's like so unexpected, and
that kind of stuff's happened. That kind of stuff's
it warms the cockles of my heart.
That sounds nasty.
It really does. Yeah. I mean, hey, we all have cockles. Come on.
I don't even know what that is. I'm not educated enough to know what a cockle is. I don't want to know.
Yeah, you probably.
It sounds like something you kind of steam and you serve it with pasta.
Like a cockle shell.
Like a cockle shell, yeah.
Well, that's probably what
is that what it is? Okay.
Well, I wonder why that. Now I'm kind of wondering about the etymology of that kind of shit. What is cockles and heart? What else? Does that have to do with anything?
Oh, you know what? We're talking about that movie. We saw that.
Oh, and wait. Oh, and also we also have a new patron named Sophie.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
hi, Sophie.
You told me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sophie.
All right. So you guys kick ass. Thank you so much. Any
The
donation is appreciated.
The show is growing slowly but steadily. This was never intended to be one of those big blockbuster mainstream shows that sells out and shills for other shows
with giant robots and explosions and Michael Bay.
Yeah, we were always kind of an underground show. We always wanted to grow this slowly, but with a real good hardcore interactive fan base, and that's the way it's going.
Yeah,
because some of our supporters have been with us for going on 2 years now.
And you know what my favorite thing is? My favorite thing is when I get messages, and I get them all the time, saying, you guys are just like, I want to hang out with you guys.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys are like my friends. I just like to listen to you. I'm like, I don't even like to listen to us. So the fact that you guys do, that is so awesome. It's like, I can't stand listening.
Well, no, I understand it because I used to listen to paranormal shows. I'm a huge Art Bell fan, and now that Art's gone, and shows like this have a certain place. When you're trying to go to sleep at night, you want something to listen to that's kind of interesting, or if you're commuting, you're on a train or in your car, you want something to listen to. Unfortunately, we're not doing these every day. If we did these every day, we wouldn't get anything else done. There'd be no books or anything like that. 2 a week is all we can handle. But I understand it, you know what I mean? There weren't very many good paranormal programs on YouTube. Some of them were very fact-based, where there's a lot of facts, a lot of data. But they're not very entertaining, a lot of them. Like, you don't know much about the host, and they're, you can't really make kind of a bond with them because they're mostly just talking about the case.
As much as I love, particularly there's a few true crime YouTube channels that I really like. Yeah, like I love the fact-based, the information where they're just reading it, but I kind of wanted, I didn't want to do another one like that.
You just be another one of those.
Because there's a lot of them already like that, and a lot of them are really good and like really high production value. So
you're not really going to beat them at their own game.
I was like, I just kind of wanted it to be just me and you dicking around and talking about shit. This
is like a scene nexus. We coming together as a nexus talking about the scene.
I like your hand gestures. You guys can't see them, but he's doing like little circles, like a spirograph.
It's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, we're like in the middle of the nexus of.
We're in the nexus.
Whatever.
And and also we're producers.
The Crustle sphere. I suppose.
It's kind of like being in the Crustle sphere, but it's more about the production of audiobooks and books. Really, the main thing that we do is make those damn audiobooks in terms of, contributing to the scene. We got some cool shit planned. It's just, we gotta get it done. The time. It takes a long time to make these things. But we got some really cool plans. An extended reboot of Mammoth Mountain Poltergeist, I think, is really one of the... Once the trilogy's done, we've got to do that.
Early next year, that will be...
And we have to get your fiction out.
That's another thing.
On audiobook. Because really, audiobook is what sells.
Yeah.
Because the people you got truck drivers and commuters, and we already have a pretty decent customer base, so we need to get those out on audiobook.
Yeah, I definitely will get around to it. Oh, and also be sure to check out the 13 o'clock subreddit, which was started by our friend Duncan. Yeah. I think all the episodes are up at this point, and each episode has its own little forum. So go and check that out if you want to talk to other fans. All right, so I have some. These are not like American stories or anything like that, but these are just like
the news.
This is like
This is the news. This is the news. This is the news. See, remember I had to sing a song. You forgot about that.
Well, I was like, where's your little jingle?
It's been weeks since I forgot about that.
That's actually kind of the same jingle you sung last time. So
I haven't really had time to write anything, so I'm just kind of pulling it out. You know what I'm talking about?
I was telling you know what? We were in the liquor store the other day.
Yeah.
We're not drunks, I swear.
Yeah.
We were in the liquor store the other day, and I heard that fucking Neil Diamond song, Sweet Caroline.
This is the news. Da, da, da. Like that?
Yeah, and it's been stuck in my head since then.
It's terrible.
Since we were in the liquor. I do like that song.
To get that out of your head, you've got to listen to the song. You should put that on and listen to it.
No, that does not work for me.
It does work for me. I'll put it on and listen to it, and then it immediately vanishes out of my head.
On the plus side, when we were at the house last week, and when Shauna and Eric were here, when we were recording the show, remember we saw the video for the final countdown by Europe?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that had been stuck in my head for the whole entire week until I went to the liquor store, and then the Neil Diamond song got stuck in my head. So that's better, actually.
That video is so fucking laughable because they're trying to make it look as high-tech as possible.
The final countdown.
And I remember thinking it looked high-tech, but really it was nothing more than just a camera on the end of a fucking helicopter sped up going across the landscape with
Like,
with a clock moving fast on it. Yeah, I was like, whoa.
Fuck, man.
Yeah. Maybe it was trying to make it look like it was a cruise vessel or
That's some
something.
James Bond shit right there. Mm-hmm.
It's fucking funny.
Anyway, so these are just like some news stories that I got from like a News of the Weird site that amused me or bemused me. This first one is kind of a sad story, but it's actually, I'm going to file this under irony is a bitch.
Okay.
Also, the universe hates us.
Okay.
So this is about Charlotte Fox, who was 61. She was a mountain climber. She actually got to the top of Mount Everest in 1996, and she was actually part of the whole mountaineering expedition that was the basis of the documentary Into Thin Air. Very famous book and very famous documentary. She died recently. Do you know how she died?
How'd she die?
She fell down the stairs in her house.
Damn. How old was she when she fell?
61.
That's not that old.
Can you, like, this kills me.
Yeah.
She spent her entire life, her entire professional career
Climbing up mountains. Yeah.
And then dies
slipped and fell on the stairs.
Falling down the stairs.
Yeah.
Does that suck or what?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's what I mean. That is some like fucking...
Yeah, that's like being a motorcycle racer and then getting on your kid's tricycle and killing yourself on a damn tricycle.
That's what I mean. That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
And that just really bummed me out for some reason that I can't. But yeah, she has...
Just dumb luck. Yeah,
that is just since passed away. But just goes to show, you can spend your whole life doing like extreme shit. Like that kind of shit. But your house will kill you. Yeah. Your house is the most dangerous place because that's where you spend most of your time.
You know it's going to have to do with the situation, or maybe the lights were off. You know what I mean? Trying to go downstairs at
no
night.
Hate
she might have been drinking. You never know.
Because for real, like...
You could just one wrong move and slip and bust your ass and just... You've done it.
Many
You did it at the club.
Yeah, lots of times.
Not yet. I caught you coming down the stairs from the DJ booth.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
you still
also,
got the little shin.
Yeah, I still have a scar. I still have a notch on my shin from that.
Yeah,
and I wasn't even drunk.
No, slipped in those big old platforms.
It's just the stairs are very narrow, and I have big platform boots on. Yeah. So now I'm like super, super careful, and now everyone probably thinks
you came tumbling down the stairs. I stopped you. I hear people back there snickering. You busted. They were snickering at you because you busted your ass.
I know.
It's funny.
I gotta tell you though, like it is though. It happens. It is, I mean, you know. And honestly, when I lived in the UK, the house that I lived in, the staircase was very narrow and it was carpeted. Yeah. And it was always cold. So I always had socks on. I fell down those stairs so many times. I can't even tell you. I mean, at least they were carpeted, so it's like usually I just busted my ass and I was fine, but you know. So that really, really sucks that she climbed mountains her whole life and then freaking died falling down the stairs. Yeah. All right. So this next story comes from Denver. All right. This happened on June 2nd at the...
Rocky Mountain High, Colorado.
Oh, now that's going to be stuck in my head. Thank you so much for that. This happened on June 2nd. I don't know if the guy's been named at this point, but they just call him an unnamed off-duty FBI agent. I did find a picture of him, but all right. Okay. Shit. He was at this bar.
I'm just
and
laughing.
He was dancing. Somebody got it on video.
I saw the video.
You saw it, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
He's kind of breakdancing, sort of.
I saw the video.
I figured you might have.
I did see it. It just adds...
He was dancing, and he did a backflip, and his gun came out of the holster, fell to the floor...
discharged.
And shot another dude in the leg.
Yeah. Luckily, no one killed.
Yeah, but still, getting shot in the leg, that sucks.
It just adds to the ongoing problems that the FBI is having right now with their image. They're not the organization they once were.
I mean, hey, FBI agents, they can go out and party like anyone else. Yeah, but seriously, that is a dumbass thing to do. I'm going to go out and drink.
Yeah, here's something else. You know,
I made a living. My sidearm.
I made a living carrying a gun with the Army. You don't go to a club.
Don't take it to the bar
with your piece.
Why would you do that?
Drinking. Yeah. Accidents are going to happen. Or you're going to get loaded and somebody's going to push the wrong buttons and you're going to pull it and shoot and kill somebody.
Right. That's just bad judgment.
And it's still a federal offense to carry a concealed firearm into a bar Now, if you're law enforcement drinking off duty, I don't know. They may legally be able to do that, but I doubt it.
Yeah, that doesn't
sound right.
Seems like
sounds like a violation of policy.
Idea.
I would think that probably cost him his badge.
I hope so.
Be out drinking with his gun.
I'm
not anti-gun. I'm not anti-gun at all, people.
Well, I don't begrudge, and I don't begrudge people, like, even FBI agents, they probably have more reason to drink than I do, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, like, don't take your gun with you, and you're going to get shit-faced.
Leave that shit in the car.
Yeah, just leave it in the car.
Leave that shit in the car.
Like, why do you have to bring it in with you? Right. That just seems really dumb.
If you feel that somebody's going to jump your ass and whip your ass for being an FBI agent, don't go out.
Or don't tell anybody you're an FBI agent. What you are. That's easy, too.
Yeah, and I don't know what model of pistol that was, but any modern pistol should not discharge when dropped.
That's what I was thinking.
So there's a lawsuit there. I couldn't tell what it was. I kind of
feel like he maybe reached for it and pulled the trigger.
No, I saw it. He was just dancing, and it's like it fell out of his pants.
Oh, okay.
And it hit, and it landed on the. It landed.
It's kind of hard for them to discharge by accident. I thought.
Well, anything can happen, but I couldn't really identify the model. It looked like some kind of Smith. Like Smith & Wesson.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't have happened. But if they land the right way, no firing pin spring in the world is going to keep that firing pin to the rear. And just that concussion alone can cause it to go forward. Here's another thing. Jackhole, if you're going to take your pistol into the bar, unchamber around. That way you have to rack the...
It just
that way you have to rack the slide. You have to rack the slide to begin the firing sequence. You know what I mean? You're not under that much threat, you know what I mean? It doesn't take much to rack a slide. Now, I understand if the other hand is occupied because you're wrestling with a guy, I'm getting into tactics. I'm getting into small arm tactics. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't do it.
But yeah, and like this poor guy, I mean, the guy that got shot, his name was Thomm.
I feel bad for the dude.
He was 24 years old. It's funny because he didn't realize he'd been shot at first, because you don't.
You're right.
He just thought somebody had set a firecracker off, and then he looked down and his leg was all red. The only good thing to come out of this, well, other than him not being killed, because that easily could have happened, but the only good thing to come out of this is that the Mile High Distillery has told Tom Reddington that he has free drinks forever.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So he can come back there and get drinks whenever he wants to. All right. Now, this last story I thought was kind of funny, but this happened in Oregon, also on June 2nd. Sheriff's deputies waited for a tow truck to remove a 2003 Toyota Camry from the side of the road. 23-year-old Anthony Clark of Grants Pass walked up to the car and told the deputies he was going to steal it. He walks up to the deputies and said, "I'm going to steal that car that you're waiting to tow." He then got into the car and drove off, leading officers on a 40-mile chase through Ashland, Talent, and Phoenix, Oregon.
And it wasn't his car?
No.
Okay.
Crashing into fences and driving the wrong way on several roads.
That dude's got some balls, man.
When officers finally stopped the car, this is the best part.
Yeah.
Clark ran into a mobile home park where he was arrested trying to steal another car.
Okay.
The deputies reported Clark admitted taking LSD and said he thought he was inside a real-life version of Grand Theft Auto.
Awesome. Cut him loose. Cut that motherfucker loose. I let him go, so it's all right, man.
I understand.
I understand. Just cut him loose. All right. Dude, I thought I was a Grand Theft Auto.
Isn't that the best? I love it.
Tell you what, I like that one.
I do too.
I like that one.
I do too.
The cops are sitting there. The cops are
just probably sitting there
going, the car and they're going, step aside, G. Shit's mine. I'm lifting this car. Taking it. He takes it.
And he told them.
Yeah, he told them, I'm going to take this car.
They're
like, what?
Go you, I guess.
Okay, if I was the judge, I'd probably just get him with like criminal mischief or something like that.
I don't think he hurt anybody.
You know, under the influence in public, something like that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think that's all he was charged with. It says he was accused of driving under the influence of intoxicants and second-degree criminal mischief.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's it.
I called it.
That's all.
Yeah. Because you could almost argue temporary insanity because he's under the influence of LSD.
He's on LSD. He's like, I thought I was in Grand Theft Auto. What are you gonna do?
Judge was like, been there, done that. Yeah. Go ahead, bro. You get your little time and roll out. Get your little time and roll out. Probably gave him 90 days.
I thought that was hilarious. A pretty awesome story.
That's hilarious.
So let's kind of get into the main part of the story, which is the infamous Lost Colony of Roanoke.
Yeah, this is a good topic. How are we doing on time? We got time? Okay. Because it seemed like we were going on and on and on for a long time.
We always go on and on.
I know. Okay, I didn't know if we were ready for a commercial already.
Well, we might be.
That was that tequila.
And the rum, I might need another one in a couple.
We can always pause it and I go make you another one. That tequila.
You want to do that?
Okay, pause it. Okay, I recharged it. It's all recharged.
I know. Now we got refills.
Yeah, I'm ready for the show.
Now that we're like half an hour. Right?
Well, it's not a real serious topic. This is pretty simple.
Yeah,
I mean, it is interesting.
It is very interesting because they
simple.
haven't really found any definitive evidence of what happened to these people.
Yeah.
We're going back to the 1580s.
Yeah.
Queen Elizabeth had long been wanting to establish a colony in the New World. Kind of fill England's coffers type of stuff.
Yeah, which that didn't really work out too
well. No.
They never really made any profit off these colonies, but yeah, I remember reading about it. But,
right, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But the thing...
It ended up being an advantage eventually, but they never really made money with these.
Here's the thing, like, everything back then was, like, such a huge undertaking.
Yeah, the expenses.
Yeah. It's like, think of, you just had to go, okay, well, we're going to go to the New World. You have to cross the whole fucking Atlantic Ocean. It took months and months. It was you had to take all these supplies, all these people.
It was the equivalent of trying to colonize Mars. It was more like a thing of national pride than it was profit-making. Now, the colonies themselves eventually became successful, but not to the Empire's advantage. It was actually to their detriment because they all declared independence.
Yeah, they're like, fuck all y'all.
Once they started to make money, they just broke off.
As you would. Because why, you know, they're way the fuck across the ocean.
And then the colonies were basically always treated as second, third-class citizens anyway back in the Empire. So there was...
Even though they were the ones...
Even though they were doing a lot of the work in that... They were doing all the work in that area. When you really look at the details, it was like a no-brainer that they were going to break off. But you know, they couldn't look into the future. That was, you know, sometimes hundreds of years later, you know. Right. Depending on which empire. I mean, you know, Spanish Empire also was doing it in Mexico and Central and South America. You know.
Yeah. Now, before the very famous quote-unquote Lost Colony, there had been a couple of incursions or a couple of attempts to settle the area of Roanoke Island. The first one was in 1585. Now, a lot of shit happened because it seemed like the settlers arrived. When they first arrived, they were actually, the natives were pretty friendly, were pretty welcoming. They kind of established kind of a rapport. At first, they were trading and things of that nature. Shit went sour kind of quickly. The guy that was in charge of the initial, these were mostly like military guys and stuff like that. Yeah. Not really any diplomats, not really anything like that. So, you know, there was some misunderstandings, there was some bad blood, there was like, oh, you guys stole a silver cup, you did this, that, and the other, and then... And then one of the dudes that was running the original, you know, group of settlers beheaded the chief of one of the tribes. Yeah. And, you know, obviously they didn't really take too kindly to that. Right. So, you know, there was already some shit going on before the... you know, quote-unquote, lost colonists even got there.
Right. And you also have to mention the fact of everything that the Spanish were doing in Mexico around that time. Right. With the conquistadors. And the conquistador, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions of what actually happened with Hernan Cortez and the conquistadores. The way that's been spun through the British version of the tale that we've inherited here in the United States about that, you know, 40 conquistadors brought down the Aztec Empire. Not really
that's
true.
Not
true.
Really
that's not how that happened. It was more like Hernan Cortez led a revolt of a bunch of Mesoamerican cities against the central city, whereas now Mexico City, the Indian name is escaping my mind at this point. But when you really start to study what had happened in the Americas during the early part of what we would call the colonization period at this time, it's not really as you really thought it was. A lot of that stuff's kind of been politically skewed over the years by competing European empires. The British Empire made the Spanish look bad, and the Spanish made the British look bad.
Everyone wants their own people to look in the best possible light. You know what I mean?
Right. And we've inherited a lot of those stories from the Age of Empire. That's a lot of times where those stories came from.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing. And, you know, when I was kind of looking into... Because I've been reading, like, about a lot of American folklore and things of that nature. And, you know, I was going to talk a little bit about it on the show, but we kind of decided to just go more in this direction with this one case. But the interesting thing about it is that how so much of the stuff that you learn in school, I know that they have to simplify it because, you know, history is, you know, immensely complex. And it's very hard to, like, distill things down to, you know, teach it to little kids in, like, a brief period of time. So you have to leave a lot of shit out. But it's interesting how stuff like this gets filtered through different lenses depending on who's telling the story.
Yeah. One of the big lies that we were all taught is that the Native Americans were one race. They weren't. They were a bunch of competing tribes that had different histories of their own. Some of them were people that had walked across ice bridges from China. Some of them were Clovis-type people that had walked across ice bridges that came from Europe. Some of them were more kind of like Mesoamericans that had kind of walked up from Mexico. So, and they all had their own languages and their own cultures and their own tribal and slash kind of semi-national identities, and they were warring with each other for thousands of years before the British and the Spanish empires ever showed up here. That kind of plays into the story that we're going to tell you about the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Not all these Indian tribes were the same. They were not monolithic. They were diverse.
And honestly, some of these first incursions into Roanoke Island were met by some kind of hostile tribes and also some that were kind of friendly.
Yeah.
They actually had two Native Americans. One of them was named Manteo and one was named Wanchese. I think that's how you pronounce them. And they actually wanted to help, and they actually went back to England like as ambassadors.
Right.
This was before the Lost Colonists, came.
Yeah, that's another misconception. The Indians, or I'm calling them Indians because that's just the common vernacular.
American Indians.
Is that American Indians didn't know anything about the white men, didn't know anything about Europe. No, bullshit.
Well, a lot of them had been there.
A lot of them had been to Europe at this period. So usually
they were going back and forth.
A lot of times, like with Miles Standish, when they showed up, when that colony was established, the Indians said, hey, white people are here. And then a few months later, Squanto showed up, and he was an Indian that they knew about from another tribe who had just come back from England. And he spoke English, so they used him as a translator. So Indians knew about, or Europe. They didn't know all the little details, but they knew about white people.
Yeah, and like I said, some of them had been there, like some of them went as ambassadors, and that definitely happened in this case with these two particular men that went back to England for a short time. Now, before the Lost Colonists got there, as I said, there was another attempt to start a colony, but then there was this whole, evidently there was kind of I guess it was a misunderstanding where they're like, well, there's one tribe that's friendly to the colonists, there's another tribe that's hostile to the colonists and had attacked them on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
And I believe that they had actually killed one of the colonists. Right. But then, the friendly tribes were like, okay, well, we're going to get, a peace summit kind of together, and we're going to sort all this shit out. And so they established a day to do that. So the American Indians didn't show up at the time they were supposed to, or there was some kind of thing. And then the colonists got all pissed off about it, go trampling off into the woods, and they find a Native American village, the first one they came across, and they're just like, we're just going to slaughter everybody.
Yeah, these must be the bad guys.
These must be the bad guys. Right. Yeah, well, turns out that was the tribe that was friendly to them. Yeah. And so...
well, you can imagine...
bad. You can see how that played.
Right, and you can imagine the confusion. Imagine if some Cherokee went to Europe and tried to figure out the difference between the Dutch, the Germans, and the British and the French. To them,
you guys all look alike.
They all look alike, yeah. But, we look at it like, well, those are all different languages. Well, the Indians were the same way. They were all different languages. They were all different cultures. And in some cases, they were different races. Yeah. Or different ethnic groups of the same race. Even they would go to war with each other. There's another misconception that these tribes were ancient. No, most people will say that a tribe lasted about 100 years. They would blend in with other tribes and then break up and form other tribes. They were in constant flux. Yeah. A good example would be kind of like the Apache. The Apache weren't around for very long. They know when the Apache were formed and about when the Apache were broke up. And they were at war with everybody, mostly Indians. It's just like any other civilization, you know what I mean? Some countries are just in constant war with other countries.
Well, and like I said, anytime you have another tribe trying to make an incursion on your resources, you're going to fight against that, probably.
Yeah, life is a struggle. They're competing for resources.
So and I feel like that's kind of, maybe it's better now, but I remember being fed a very simplistic view of what was going on. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Indians were players. Yeah. They were players in the game. They were men trying to get things done any way you could get it done under those circumstances. There's kind of this Hollywood idea that Native American tribes were kind of these pushover victims. No, I would probably put most Native American tribes at the level of samurai, even up into the 1800s.
Well, they ended up helping out the colonists a lot because, the early colonists that first came, were not...
I'm talking about battle prowess. Yeah. These guys weren't victims. They were good at what they did. Yeah. In fact, most of the early literature that white people wrote about the Native Americans all the way up until maybe the 1800s or 1900s was nothing but just man crush, man on man crush about how great Indians were.
Yeah.
That they were perfect physical specimens, that they were great warriors, they had great equipment and tactics. Miles Standish had to prove himself to the Indians. And, he wrote back saying these dudes are fantastic at what they do. They were like special forces troops.
Well, from the Native American standpoint, you'd have to think that most of the colonists that came there, they probably saw them as soft.
Soft, weak, city boys, wearing one step away from wearing makeup and powdered wigs. You know what I mean? Effeminate city boys. That's how the Indians saw these guys.
Well, yeah, and you can't blame them. I mean, because, they just kind of lived off the land, and they were, it was a very warrior culture. Most of them were. And
to tell it the way it really happened, most of the time, even in the period of the United States and the existence of the United States, Native American forces kicked ass on the U.S. Army most of the time, and because they had better tactics, they even had better weapons.
Well, and they were more familiar with the terrain, obviously.
Yeah, and the better tactics and shit like that. And there's this Hollywood concept that Indians ran around in the 1800s with bows and spears. No, they used lever-action repeating rifles. They had the best weapons money could buy. Really, they were not defeated by military means. What happened was that the landscape changed. Cars came, there was railroads, and you just couldn't maintain the Indian lifestyle. You had to get a job. You know what I mean? Yeah. You couldn't just run around. People owned land. You're walking through people's grazing territory, So really it wasn't the Indians were not defeated. The Indian lifestyle just phased out. That's really what happened. There was a lot of interbreeding. If you're an American, you've been here longer than 3 generations, you have some Native American in you. That's definitely pretty much. Case. There was a lot of absorption too, interbreeding.
And I'm kind of thinking that that's probably what happened with the Lost Colony thing.
The Mandan Indian tribe was wiped out because everybody married them, all right? Because they were known as being like the best looking in their area. So they just married white people. I mean, the white guys would go there. They didn't have wives. They married Indian women. The city of Salem the town of Salem was mostly mixed race between British and Indian people. And the history says that right there in the town logs.
And like I said, that is one of the main theories about what happened to the Lost Colony, too. That they just
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
But first, we're going to take a break because we're a little bit past the halfway point, but that's okay. So we will be back in just a few minutes, and we will talk more about the Lost Colony of Roanoke.
Okay, everybody, Jenny's got some new shirt designs up, 4 of them. Really good ones, too. Atlanta Ripper, Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm, the H.H. Holmes Murder Castle, and of course, Demon Child, because man said he could. These are updated designs. I think they look really cool. Jenny did a great job on them. Were they fun making, Jenny?
They were very fun, and thank you very much. I think they came out very good.
Yeah, they get really good. They're very high-quality shirts. Jenny and I wear our own shirts at certain times when we're trying to put a spotlight on ourselves, and you can put a spotlight on yourselves. If you go ahead and pick up one of these shirts today, you guys are going to love them. Links in the description, www.zazzle.com at 13 o'clock.
Yeah, so go check out our store at www.zazzle.com/13 o'clock. We got these 4 cool new t-shirt designs, plus all our old ones if you'd rather get one of the old ones. But these ones are awesome, and you should check them out.
They're also available in women's cut, and they look really cute. Jenny's got some.
So thank you. Go check them out. Okay, and we're back. When you talk about the Lost Colony, the famous Lost Colony, this happened in 1587. This was a group of 115 colonists.
Yeah.
I think it was 87 men, 17 women, 11 children, I think was, if that mathematically adds up right. I think that's about what it was. So they're going to go start a new colony. Now, the leader of it was a guy named John White, who was an artist, also a friend of Sir Walter Raleigh, who was kind of the guy that was, bankrolling the whole thing. Or he wasn't bankrolling it, but he was Queen Elizabeth's, right-hand man, and she was kind of telling him, So White was the governor, and they try to establish this colony. At some point, they need someone to go back to England for more supplies. John White is recruited, I guess is the right word, because I think John White was like, I didn't really want to go. I mean, he had a daughter there. He had a granddaughter, Virginia Dare, who was significantly the first English child born on American shores, born in the New World. So he was like, well, I didn't really want to go, but everyone else insisted. So some historians have speculated that the reason that the other colonists insisted that John White was the one that go back to England to get supplies for the colonists was because he was kind of slinging his dick around a little bit, like with the Native Americans and everything, and they thought that he was not being diplomatic and he was going to get them in trouble. So he's like, why don't you go back to England, get us some shit, and then we'll try and settle everything down. It was kind of a thing like that. He left only about a month after they got there and set up the colony. Now he was supposed to come right back. Or as right back as you could come, having to sail over the entire Atlantic Ocean. However, when he got back to England, turns out that whole war between England and Spain was happening. And Queen Elizabeth was like, no, we need every single ship to fight the Spanish Armada, so you are not going back there. Even though, like I said, his daughter was there, his granddaughter was there. So he didn't end up coming back to Roanoke for 3 years.
Okay.
It took 3 years for him to get back. Now, he comes back to where he left the Roanoke colony, and there's nothing there. 3 years later.
Now, from memory, I thought there was some stuff there.
There
were
no
people.
There were no people.
Yeah, right.
The only clues, obviously the houses, the forts, and everything like that had been disassembled.
Yeah.
They found a tree that had CRO carved into it.
Yeah.
And part of the posts, on the outside of a fort or whatever.
Yeah.
And it said Croatoan.
Croatoan.
So they carved the word Croatoan into the wood. Also in the woods, they found some trunks that had some things of theirs, like books and stuff.
Things that you don't need for survival, sounds like.
Yeah, it seemed like stuff that maybe they're like, well, we'll come back later for that.
Right.
So it didn't look like, because here's the thing, they had established that, they're like, look, if you had to leave quickly or leave in duress, put a cross, leave a cross symbol. They didn't leave that.
Okay.
So they did have time to disassemble the village, or, whatever they had built.
You're right.
They did have time to carve Croatoan, which was the name of an island as well as the name of a Native American tribe that they were kind of friends with.
Right.
So that's where he assumed they had gone.
Right. That's making quite a drastic assumption, though, when you think about it. Could something like that just been scrawled down by a guy who was doing guard duty because he had heard that word? Or was that actually a message to where they went?
I kind of feel like it was, because from everything that I've read, it does seem like, they didn't expect White to be gone that long, obviously. They thought he was going to come back in a couple of months with stuff, with food and everything, and tools and whatnot. They weren't expecting him to be gone 3 years. But from everything I've read, they did establish, they're like, look, if we're not here when you come back, we'll leave a message as to where we went to. Okay. Now, the fact that somebody went to the trouble to carve Croatoan, not only in that thing on the front of the fort, the post, but also to carve CRO in the tree, but not carve a cross above it. And like I said, they obviously didn't leave quickly because they had time to disassemble everything.
Right.
So they weren't in a hurry. So this is why I don't feel like, because, some theories about what happened to these people is that, the Native Americans got pissed off and wiped them out. But
I doubt that.
I doubt that too, because honestly, they've never found any bodies.
The scene wouldn't look like that if it was an Indian massacre.
It seemed very deliberate.
Yeah.
It seemed like, okay, well, we don't like it here, or we need to go elsewhere. who knows?
Okay,
Maybe
the
that
island.
failed.
Were they on the island, or was there any... Because you said there was an island called Croatoan.
The island is called... Well, now it's called Hatteras Island.
Okay.
But back then it was called Croatoan Island. The tribe was called the Croatan tribe.
And they lived there on that island?
And they lived there on that island.
Okay. Did they ever go to that island to look for him?
Well, okay.
Okay.
Here's what ended up happening.
Okay.
So White... He comes there, he sees the message Croatoan, and he immediately says, oh, well, that's where they went.
Right.
Because we established a code that we were going to say.
Right.
That's where, you tell us where you're going. And then he found the trunks with the books and stuff. He's like, oh, okay, cool. That just must mean they were going to come back for the stuff, and everything is fine. He's like, I'm going to sail. It was about 50 miles, I think. He's like, I'm going to sail down to Croatoan and see what's what.
So
see if I can find out where I can.
50
However,
miles away.
It was 50 miles.
50 miles was a long way away in those days.
Now, he attempted to go. Yeah. I think the first time it was a storm, like the second time. In any case, he tried to go like 3 times, and he was never able to get there.
Okay.
And then he ended up having to go back to England. So he never...
So he never verified it.
Went back to the New World, ever.
So there's a chance at least some of them did go to Croatoan.
That's what I'm thinking. And it's like, yes, it's creepy. Yes, it's mysterious.
Right.
But they said where they were going.
Okay.
I mean, that's what they said they were going to do.
Right.
They said, we're going to tell you where we're going. We went to Croatoan,
right.
but he couldn't get there.
Okay.
So, and he couldn't get there to check.
Right.
I don't think they were killed, all of them.
Well, okay. I'm going to go ahead and throw in my 2 cents at this point.
All right.
Knowing what I know about how the colonies were organized back in those days, okay, they were organized very poorly. A lot of times they had leadership that was unfit for command. What I think happened is that the colonies started to fail. Whoever was in charge really had lost the confidence of most of the colonists. I'm thinking, having actually lived in military type situations out in the field where you're worried about fucking very basic necessities like food and water and, anything like shelter, okay, because I've actually lived that life. I'm going to go ahead and say that group probably had splintered into at least 2 factions. I'm going to say that whoever wrote Croatoan was probably the leadership. In other words, the official leadership, the one that England had decided. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times the leadership of a colony was appointed by the monarchy. They even had little licenses. You are in charge. Wouldn't surprise me if the person in charge decided to go to Croatoan with his faction. And then I also had to think that there was another faction. And I think the other faction joined the Indians. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of problems with the European lifestyle and the European system and the European way of thinking in that place and time. The European lifestyle just didn't work in the New World in the 1500s. It didn't work in the New World really until the 1900s, when you think about it.
True.
Okay? I think a sizable portion of that colony went Indian. And that's what they used to call it in the 1800s. Going Indian.
Right.
They almost kind of saw it as defecting. It's where, you know what? Fuck all this European shit, okay? Because there was a lot of different shit in the European society back then. There was a lot of religious forces, things that you had to do to be part of your religion. There was a lot of monarchy type stuff, like following the king. Weird rules that colonies had to follow because the king put them on. That just didn't work in the New World. That would have been like a very theoretical situation, you know what I mean? But life in the New World was about the here and now, so there was no advantage of following that stuff. I think they just joined Indian tribes.
That's kind of what I'm leaning toward.
Joining
also.
an Indian tribe would have been the best thing you could do if you were a colonist. They had it made. They didn't have to worry about Christendom. They didn't have to worry about monarchy. They could live in the here and now. They could have a lot of fun inside a tribe. They were very liberated. They had concepts like free love. They had all different kinds of honor type systems, you know what I mean? Men could be men in that system. They could earn their way up. Irish guys and English guys did very well in Indian tribes. And so did the women. A lot. You'd hear all these stories later on, even in the 1800s, about white women being captured by the Indians. They'd even attack these tribes to get those women back. And in the middle of the night, all those women would vanish. Because they'd all go back.
We went on purpose.
They went on purpose.
Motherfucker.
And this is something that
They were nice to us.
This is something that white guys of the time had a hard time grappling with, is that Native American men could beat out white men of those days. And it was a better life.
In general.
It was a better lifestyle. In a European lifestyle in the colonies, you lived in basically a filthy town that wasn't really well supplied, and it was tightly controlled either by a theocracy or a monarchy. The living wasn't that good. Or you could live a mobile lifestyle, that was very clean living, fresh meat, fresh water, kind of like you could get you a man or you could get you a woman. You could wear practical clothing, made out of buckskin and leather. It was a better lifestyle, and that's something that
you could see how that would be very appealing, particularly to the women, I would think.
And the women did not have to worry about Christian rules. It wasn't as tightly patriarchal.
Yeah,
it was. A woman could be what she was worth. You know what I'm talking about? If she was good at doing certain things, she was recognized that way. And a lot of these values that Americans hold dear today actually were kind of picked up from the Indian tribes by osmosis, including democracy and many of those. You can go back to Athens and Greece. But Indian tribes were kind of democratic too, because democracy is kind of practical.
More than the Europeans.
More than Europeans at that time in those colonies. Sure. So it made more sense in the New World to be an Indian than it did to be a European, if you want to talk about lifestyle. They had a superior lifestyle. And even all the way up into the 1800s, they kicked ass on the American army. Most of the time. Yeah, the American army made a lot of mistakes. They massacred the wrong people or massacred people for reasons that really were stupid. You can find a lot of the details in the commanding officers going, wait a minute, why am I being ordered to do this? This doesn't make any sense. These aren't the Indians we're looking for. Like something out of Star Wars, But the 1800s was chaos. Most of reality is a chaos, really, when you think about it. You know what I mean?
Ain't that the truth?
And when you have centrally commanded governments that are far away telling their troops to do certain things, those troops are like, why the hell are we being told to do this? This doesn't make any sense.
Well, and the thing, this is what I always thought. It's like, look, whoever's telling you to do that, they are an entire ocean away. They're not going to know what the fuck
they don't know what's going on.
They don't know what you're up to.
Right.
Even if somebody narcs on you, it's going to be months before anybody finds that shit out.
Right.
You could get away with all kind of crap.
Yeah.
So I don't really know why anyone would want it. So here's the thing. Like, I kind of feel like, and there was also, in 1585, John White had made a map. It's actually very accurate to, what it was like at the time. Now, some people have noted that at some point he had put like a patch over one little part of the map, which was a pretty common thing to do back in the day because, when you were making a map, you couldn't like start all over because it was, they were expensive to make. So you would just put a patch over something that you messed up. Now, underneath this patch, there's like a little four-pointed star shape, indicating that there was maybe a fort. Now, this was not on Roanoke Island. It was not on Croatoan Island. It was inland. It was about 50 miles inland.
Yeah. So
some have speculated that maybe they either went to Croatoan Island and later went here inland, or one group went to Croatoan, one group went inland. Yeah. Because John White actually had talked about going about 50 miles inland. Yeah. Well, and that's where this map was. That's where this fort was on the map.
Wouldn't surprise me if the leadership of the Roanoke colony tried to get to Croatoan Island.
Yeah.
But I think what we're talking about here is like maybe between 5 and 10 guys. Okay. I think most of them went Injun, but they were afraid. The people who were in charge of the colony were afraid of hanging and getting in trouble. So they went to a fallback position where they thought it would be safe to wait for like rescue. But that didn't work out. That's what I think happened. You're only talking about 4 or 5 guys, maybe 10 guys. It'd be easy for a small group like that to vanish without a trace. Yeah. Okay, and I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
I think it busted up into 2 groups. The command went to Croatoan Island. Everybody else joined the Indian tribes. That's probably what happened.
I kind of feel like I don't know
it's like a revolt, all of them, basically.
Because here's the thing. In later years, particularly when the Jamestown settlement, which, nowadays is considered the oldest American, settlement in the world.
Right.
Because Roanoke colony disappeared and they don't know what happened to them.
Jamestown was the successful one.
That was the successful one.
And if you look at the details of how that became successful, it relates really closely to the situation I'm talking about now. That colony kind of, quote unquote, went Injun.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
The Native Americans helped them.
You have to go Injun if you're
here. You have to. They live here.
Exactly.
They know.
Exactly.
You're dumb if you don't listen to them because they're like, look, we've lived here for hundreds, thousands of years.
Well, I think Roanoke had a big problem with going Injun and it split into 2. That's what I think happened.
It might have.
Right.
Now, I don't think, like I said, there are a lot of theories about what happened to these people, to these 115 people. Some people are like, oh, well, the Indians killed them. Some people are like, the Spanish killed them because,
I doubt
the Spanish were kind of pissed off at the English too because they were privateering all along the coast and raiding their ships and shit like that. Yeah. So it's possible. Very unlikely. I don't think it's very likely
because
they never found any bodies.
Right.
And the whole fact that they left clues to where they had gone. I mean, I know 3 years had passed, so some other shit might have happened in the interim. But I do kind of feel like they had a plan. They're like, okay, well, we're going here. Maybe with Mateo, who was their friend from one of the Native American tribes. So he's like, well, maybe he said, well, why don't you just come live with my people? Yeah. Maybe all of them did that. Yeah. Maybe some of them said, no, we're going to go to this other location. Right. Who knows what happened? But I don't think they were all wiped out.
No.
I don't think. I think they integrated. And honestly, when Jamestown was established, there were some reports. There's
of white Indians, right?
Yeah. Yes. There's no physical evidence of this, but there were several reports that, we've seen Native American tribes where they had blue eyes or blonde hair, or they had English sounding names.
Yeah.
They found some kind of English sort of pottery and things like that at some points along that. So there's a possibility. I kind of think they integrated.
Yeah.
It was 115 people. Some of them might have died. Some of them might have starved. Who knows? But it's I kind of feel like they just became integrated. And after a little while, nobody really knew the difference anymore.
By all of the written accounts from those days, from the 15, 16, and 1700s, white people and Native American people kind of took to each other pretty easily. I think what ended up happening is that most of the Roanoke tribe took husbands and wives from the Native American population. They just blended right in.
And
there were
so
many reports later on in the 1700s about, boy, these Indians, they're like white people. They look like white people. And that's part of what you're talking about. Yeah. Another part of what you're talking about is that there's a lot of archaeological evidence that possibly in the northeastern area, many of the Native American tribes were kind of like the Clovis people. Okay, they built a lot of things like Clovis people. And there seems to have been an ice sheet that connected parts of Ireland to the New World. We're talking about thousands and thousands of years ago. So some of the people in the northeast of the United States in the 1500s may have been basically descendants of Europeans that had walked across ice bridges, because that was definitely happening across the ice bridge to China, and I think that had happened before there. Just because you show up in a boat in the 1500s, that doesn't mean you're the first one there. There was a lot of migration.
No. And that's what I said. That's the whole thing about Christopher Columbus, and why the fuck do we even have a Columbus Day? Because it's he wasn't even the first one here.
No, he had Vikings show up too.
One, he didn't even land in the continental United States.
No, islands.
Two, the Vikings had been here. 500 years before him?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And if the Vikings could do it, then chances are it was done thousands of years before that on limitless. I think
you would think,
I think the American continents have been undergoing migration for tens of thousands of years.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Right.
Now let me mention something here about, this is something that's kind of come up about the whole Lost Colony of Roanoke thing, and this is the Dare Stones. Now, I watched a bunch of documentaries about this today in preparation for the show. The History Channel, back when they actually showed history and not a bunch of stupid reality shows, actually made a very informative documentary about the Lost Colony of Roanoke. It was very entertaining, I thought. They also had one of a later vintage that's called America Unearthed, and it was about the Dare Stones. Now, the dude that's on it, I can't remember what his name was, but he's supposed to be like a geologist or something, geologic historian, I don't remember what his name was. He came across on this show, America Unearthed, like a giant fucking ass bag. I mean, well, no, seriously, okay.
An ass can be a bag?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's okay, here's the thing, and this is what I hate. I hate that the History Channel and the Discovery Channel and stuff like that, I hate that they do and I'm making little bunny rabbit ears, ironic, finger quotes, documentaries about this now.
Yeah, well,
I don't like this whole, I'm a, scientist or researcher or whatever. I have information information that hundreds and thousands of other experts don't have, and I'm right and they're wrong because my gut tells me so.
Yeah.
I really, really hate that. And I kind of feel like this show was like that. This guy was basically coming from the preconceived end that the Dare Stones, which I'll get to in a minute, were genuine. And so then he goes around like arguing with experts, museum curators, archaeologists, things
Making
like
an
that.
ass out of himself.
Making an ass out of himself.
Well,
being
what
like,
is a Dare Stone? Tell
the
us.
Dare Stones, okay, it's a series of 48 stones that were supposedly carved by, now the first one they said was carved by Eleanor White Dare, who was the daughter of John White, the mayor, and also the mother of Virginia Dare, the first baby, the first English baby born in the New World. So these were all supposed to have been carved by her or by other of the lost colonists and left at various points around the area, saying what happened to them. Problem with this. Now, I'm willing to give the first Dare Stone the benefit of the doubt. This was discovered in 1937 by a tourist, and he came across this stone. It had like a cross carved into it, and it said Ananias Dare, who was her husband, and Virginia Dare, that was her daughter, the baby, went hence unto heaven 1591, so she's saying her husband and her baby died in 1591, which was about 4 years after the colony was settled. It says, any Englishman showed John White. Now, this stone might be genuine. I don't want to say 50-50, but it's like some experts that have looked at it sort of like, yeah, it looks like it comes from the time. It looks like, this could be genuine. However, the 47 other ones that said what happened to like, oh, the Indians killed all but 7 of the settlers, and then we went here, we went there, we ended up in fucking Georgia, wherever the fuck they ended up.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like, those ones, those only came about after the person who received the first stone was like, oh, well, we want to know what happened to the colonists. Maybe there are more of these somewhere. And then this was during the Depression in the U.S., right? So people were like, cha-ching.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, conveniently, a stone cutter was like, yeah, I found a shit ton more of these. and the guy that was that wanted to see them was like offering like $500 like reward or something like that. That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
So, so now there's like this whole saga of like what happened to this. I think that's largely bullshit. Yeah. So I was watching this quote unquote History Channel documentary. It's good, like I said, it's called America Unearthed. It's on YouTube. And I have to say my faith in humanity was restored because pretty much 99% of the commenters were like, what the fuck is this bullshit? It's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Yeah. It's like he doesn't know anything. And he's like going around. And so he may very well be a geologist, but he's coming at it from the perspective of, I think that all of these stones are genuine. Therefore, every other single expert who disagrees with me, he's just going to argue with them. And I like that the one museum curator guy who's actually has like shit from the actual sites is just kind of like, those are fakes. Everybody knows those are fakes. Right. And here's the reason why I think a lot of them are. The first one may or may not be a fake. I'm willing to concede maybe the first one is genuine, but all the first one says is that my husband and baby died. Please tell my dad, here we are, it's 1591 or whatever. That's pretty much all it says. Right. The other ones, like I said, have this whole epic saga about where they went and all this other kind of shit. But the problem is that a lot of the stones, okay, for one thing,
if you made those stones, where would you put them so people could find them?
Well, no. See, the problem is that the stonecutter found them.
That's a huge problem. Let's say I'm writing down little notes. Of course it is.
This is why 99% of experts on Roanoke Colony are like, these are fakes. Yeah, right. They're like, we're not sure about the first one because that was found by a different dude, like at a different time. Yeah. But it's like these other ones that suddenly appeared after there was a reward.
You're just finding all these little stones with messages on them.
That's what I mean. It's like, it just seems like, it seemed like, well, we wanted to know what happened to the Roanoke colonies. Like, you want to know? I'm just going to carve this shit around right here. And then I'm going to, like, fucking age it. I think most of that...
You can go ahead and blow that off. You can go ahead and blow that off. That's not a real...
The only thing that makes me think the first one might be fake is that it's signed...
Or you mean real? The first one might be real?
No. The only thing that makes me think the first one might be fake...
Okay, all right.
is that it's signed EWD, Eleanor White Dare.
Yeah.
In that era, women didn't usually sign things like that.
Okay.
They're like another thing that is not so much the first one, but all the other ones. They're like, here's the thing. The spelling on it, one, it's all Roman letters, no Gothic letters,
okay.
which
Big
unusual.
problem.
Two, the spelling is consistent, which it wasn't at the time.
Right. There's no standardized spelling back then.
There was no standardized spelling back then. Also, a couple of the words that were used in some of the messages, not in common usage, such as the word
a fake.
reconnoiter.
Oh, reconnoiter?
Which actually was not in
That's
use.
1900s.
No, first published use was 1707.
Okay, but reconnoiter became a common term used in the 1900s. That was 1900s.
But like I said, first published use was early 1700s.
Yeah.
But later than these stones.
Yeah, that's full of shit.
They're like, it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. Okay. So I kind of feel like I'm on the fence about the first one. Maybe that's real, maybe that's not.
No, it's fake.
I kind of am leaning toward the first one being fake as well. That's the only one that hasn't been. Right. But the other 47 are almost certainly fake.
The Roanoke colony vanished without a trace because of ass. Did you know that? You didn't know that? Indians have fine ass.
Everything comes
and everybody
down to
has fine ass. Well, of course, because you have to adapt to the new way of life. And
to the situation that you find yourself
in the new world, the Indians were the masters of that game. They knew how to live and prosper in that environment. You couldn't do it the European way in that day. These are human beings. You got to get laid.
It's very true.
All right? And
that's very
the Indians had all that. Okay, the Indians had all that. And by all accounts, these Indians were a sight to see.
Well, like I said, they've been living there for hundreds of thousands of years. So they were adapted to their environment. They weren't,
They were all in great shape.
Yeah.
And everybody said they were fantastic physical specimens. And that they had lots of virtue. Masculine and feminine virtue. And I would think that the colonists themselves probably were not the best England had to offer. So, you know what I mean? Biology takes over. You know what I mean?
It does, inevitably.
You see these good-looking people that are making it and they're prospering. Are you going to side with them? Or are you going to side with some faraway government?
Are you going to be with these pale-ass, starving motherfuckers?
Well, exactly. Well, it was more along the lines of that it was a faraway alien government that couldn't help you. Actually, that government didn't like you. You were one of their basically hood rats.
And I think one of the documentaries I watched put this in a pretty good way. There's these English people, they were used to being able to go to a shop and buy weapons and clothing and food. You go to the New World, you can't do that. You have to live off the land. Nothing is there. You have to build everything yourself. You have to farm everything. It would be very appealing when you came there for people that had lived there for hundreds, thousands of years.
Right.
And they knew what they were doing. They knew the land. They knew how to live off of it.
And by all accounts, they were like Special Forces commandos.
Yeah.
All right. These guys were fucking super good shape. They could run rings around you.
Yeah, I do kind of feel
biology is going to take over. Okay.
So I kind of feel like I like the mystery of the Lost Colony. Like I said, the whole detail of Croatoan being left, that used to creep me out when I was a kid before I knew that was an actual place. And I was wow. You know what I mean? It's not so creepy then. But honestly, I think all that happened was that either they all went to Croatoan and then moved somewhere else later on, or they split into two factions.
I think they split into two.
One faction went to Croatoan, one faction went to this other place inland where it was marked on the map, and they integrated into
Native American
Native American society, and then henceforth got just kind of diluted.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's probably all that happened. I don't think they got slaughtered. I don't think. Maybe some of them died of other things. Maybe some of them got killed by hostile tribes. Who knows? But
you have to understand that the Europeans that did not go to Croatoan Island, the ones that wanted to integrate, really kind of would have been seen as exotic by the Indians. Yeah. The Indians would have been like, wow, these people are different. And if they're trying to learn from you, then they must be okay. Yeah. And I think they got married. Yeah, that's what happened. They got married.
And I also want to mention, too, that there was kind of a big deal in the late 1990s when because they've done extensive archaeological digs on Roanoke Island, because a lot of people are fascinated by this case and they're trying to find evidence of where these people went and stuff like that. So they did an excavation there, and they found what they thought at first was a gold ring, like a signet ring, that had like a lion kind of thing on it. He's like, oh, that's like from the Kendall family, like the Kendall coat of arms, and that was one of the families that came here with, you know, the settlers. Yeah. And so they made a big deal about it. But then later on, when they did kind of like chemical analysis and stuff like that, they found out the ring was not gold, that it was brass. Yeah. And that what was on it, it was a lion thing, but it's like it probably came from maybe like 100, 150 years later. So it was probably just kind of like traded with the Native Americans. So it probably didn't have anything to do with the Lost Colony, because they got like super excited about it, but you know, I don't think it had anything to do with the Lost Colony, you know, or where they went or anything like that. It's an enduring American mystery. Yeah. And like I said, we have a lot of American listeners, but we also have like a lot of British listeners. We have some Native American listeners. Yeah, actually. Stuff like that. So I don't know how like commonly this mystery is known, but it's a very, very... From our generation, we knew about it. Yeah. I don't know if the younger generations know too much about Roanoke Island and about the fact that people used to trip out about what happened to them. Yeah, where'd they go? Yeah. Well, I have to say that, like, I watched, there's, like, a funny, BuzzFeed Unsolved. Yeah. Those two funny guys. They do paranormal, but they also do, like, true crime kind of shit, too. And they're, I don't know how old they are, but they're probably, like, younger than we are. I think they're probably only in their 20s or 30s. And the one guy on there said that he had learned about it in grade school. So they're still teaching it, I guess. I mean, it's like, it's kind of a big deal because, like I said, had they known what happened to them, that would have been the oldest colony in what became the United States. Part of it, I think, might be the 20th century thinking. In the 1900s, white people usually worried whether or not non-white people could integrate into a white-dominated society. So that's how they looked at the Roanoke problem. That's actually a good point. They didn't realize that it could work the other way. Then it was a white population integrating into a non-white society. They'd never thought of that, okay? And that's what happened. That's a really interesting... Yeah, because I don't really think until fairly recently... Because I remember learning about this in school and everybody being, like, mystified about what happened. Yeah. Like, it's almost like it never occurred to them that white people... Those were the Indians. Well, yeah, that, like, white people might integrate with them rather than the other way around. Those Indians had ass, too. That's what I mean. They're just people. You see, I grew up in Brazil. Yeah. So I never really had that. I was a minority there as a white guy, and to me, Brazilians are just people. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's what happened to the Indians. That's just funny. I never really thought of it from that perspective. Yeah, they integrated. Yeah, I think you might be right about that. And in the 19 and the 18... And why it took so long for people to come to that. Yeah, in the 1800s, they called that going Injun. Siding with them. And you hear that in a lot of the mindset of today about, you know, what happened with the Indian genocide is actually based in a lot of these 1900s concepts of racism that didn't exist in the 1500s. British people weren't racist in the 1500s. They just got here and they saw some other people and they wrote back about how good looking they were. You're projecting a 1900s and a 21st and a 20th century mentality back on other people that lived in the 1500s. And like I said, they weren't racist. It was always, and it was I think it was a lot more complex than people perceive it as too, because like I said, even when the first settlers came to Roanoke, like they encountered natives here that were friendly to them and natives that were not friendly to them. It just depended on what tribe they came from, like how they interacted with them. When you start getting into the 16 and 1700s, like in the islands, you know, where all the pirates were and all the shipping, you know, what am I thinking of? Like in Puerto Rico and everything. It's nothing but just a story of race mixing, really. On those ships, they had people of different races and women of different races, and it didn't matter who you were married to as long as you were married to somebody, you know what I mean? Because they were kind of freed from Europe. And everyone was free. Well, like I said, it was kind of far away from it. It was, and it was almost kind of like people that almost wanted to get away from that, or that were sent away from that. Exactly. This was a scene. It was a bunch of wild ass motherfuckers, and they were freely breeding with each other upon natural basis. It's just if you were good looking, you were going to get some. That's basically what it was all about. They really didn't care too much. It's just how a person treats you. Well, like I said, you're just asshole or non-asshole. Yeah. That's pretty much my two categories. I don't really understand it. I only understand the power of ass. The power
of ass, yeah. Should we let's close this shit out.
All right.
Let's close this shit
out. Are we going to talk about... I have a nice ass, though, right?
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you.
Big old titties.
We probably should have this show right now. It's going to get really, really bad.
Get too wild.
All right.
But Lost Colony of Roanoke. Let's sum it up. You know what? It was white people integrating.
Mostly, I think they integrated. Like I said, maybe a couple of them died from other things. I don't think they were wiped. I don't think the Indians wiped them out. I don't think that. They never found all their bodies or anything. If anything,
the leadership of the Roanoke colony tried to fucking run to Croatoan Island. They were talking maybe between 5 and 10 people. They didn't make it. The rest of them probably that integrated, just their descendants became Indians.
Yeah, I think they just kind of dispersed into the...
They got married.
Yeah, like people from... Like, I think people that are arguing against that are like, oh, well, when Jamestown was established, which was only like 20 years later, they're like, well, why didn't any of them contact us?
They were married.
They knew we were here.
They were
but
married.
I was kind of like, well, maybe they were just like over it.
Fuck that.
They were just like, fuck that. Whatever.
Fuck that. We're living good with the tribes and we're married now and I got kids. Well, this is what would happen.
20 years ago, I don't even remember.
What would they do 20 years later, right? They're going to show back up to the new colony and says, oh, yeah, I've been gone. Oh, by the way, here's my wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And here's our children. No, it wouldn't work.
That's what I mean. 20 years is a long time.
It wouldn't work.
And I kind of feel like...
They went out to live their own lives.
Yeah, they probably just went off and then when they heard about that, they're like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they're like, fuck all that. That's not going to work.
Yeah, it's like we're just, we're doing our own shit over here. We got wife and kids.
I gotta go hunt buffalo. I ain't worried about that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think that's probably what happened. I think they just went, went native, I guess. I'm saying that with a little ironic words.
Yeah, and then in the 1800s they called it going Injun.
Going Injun. Yeah, I think that's what they did. I don't think they got killed off or anything like that. There wasn't anything, and like I said, there's a lot of stupid shit about, they got kidnapped by aliens also.
Oh, come on.
I'm just like, oh my god, really? No.
No.
And that's why I laughed about, like, the BuzzFeed one. Go watch the BuzzFeed Unsolved about this, because I love that the one guy is kind of open to quote unquote paranormal. So he's like, yeah, they got kidnapped by aliens. The other guy's like, man, fuck you. Yeah. I'm like, that's just
aliens didn't get them, ass got them. You got to get married eventually. You know what I mean? The power, the biological power of mating. You know what I'm talking about? You're gonna, somebody cute came along and you're gonna do what you're gonna do. You know, and the next thing you know,
he's just look at that. I can get behind that. All right.
Of course.
Yeah, I think.
Or you can get behind you, depending on what sex you are.
Well, yeah, it works both ways.
It works both ways.
You can get behind one another.
We're getting too drunk.
All right. Anyway. Hopefully you enjoyed this 4th of July Independence Day special.
Right. Let off them fireworks.
Yeah, it's like please don't blow your fingers off or anything like that. Don't drink and firework or anything else. Don't drink and grill, anything else. And remember, if you like the show, remember to like, share, subscribe on all your social media. Share with all your friends. And if you would like to financially support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/13o'clockpodcast, or you can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com. And there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account.
Up in the sidebar, where
you can give a one-time donation, like Eric did. Thank you again, Eric. Just giving you another shout-out at the end.
Shout it out, Eric.
Surprise.
Eric, you're the man, bro.
Yeah, so... Also, remember to check out our latest movie review, which was The Dead Zone from 1983. Very good Stephen King adaptation. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. And that'll do it for episode 98. We will see you next time. Happy 4th of July. Bye.
I see the shore right over there. Wanna hold my granddaughter, Virginia Dare. That's weird, it's clear, nothing to show. Where's Roanoke? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I can't find my colony no more. Where'd it go? Roanoke, it was here 3 years before. Were they killed with the native stage? Tried to sail home. What does Croatoan mean anyway?